Hello everybody, and welcome to day 8 of our virtual field trips here at the Gristmill Gardens in Karamias. My name's Chris, I'm the guy in charge, and today we are going to be going into our little glass greenhouse here and working on our plants a little bit. It's definitely the time of year when we need to be starting seeds for our vegetable gardens, getting the early season flowers that we can start in the greenhouse so that they're in bloom by the time the public gets here, whenever that is. Now today you might notice that this is our first virtual field trip that isn't live. We're pre-recording this because turns out using mobile data, even though the cell tower is just up the hill, up there, it doesn't work very well. So we're going to record this video and then we're going to upload it hopefully right for 10 o'clock when you're expecting it. So anyways, let's go into our little greenhouse here. Now, it's been closed up for the night because it gets pretty cool around here at night still. So you can imagine it is really, really warm in here now. We've got all sorts of plants growing quite nicely. We've got some tomatoes here just starting. We've got some onions growing. These guys I'm really excited about. They're just starting to pop up, and they're something called a loofah gourd. Those loofah sponges that you see sometimes actually come from a dried gourd. The guts, when you dry them out, become these wonderful sponges. So these guys right here are going to become loofah sponges at the end of their life. And then we also have a bunch of other things growing here as well. Now, let me just put you up right here. And this way we've got some room to talk. So, yeah, different plants require different amounts of food and different amounts of heat and different amounts of water. And some things that we want to grow here wouldn't grow easily by themselves if we just planted the seeds and let it go. There's all sorts of reasons for that. One reason is we tend to have pretty frosty mornings for a while. So our growing season isn't as long as it is in some other places. Another is pests. We have a lot of quail birds around here, and they love digging up seeds. So we don't really want to plant seeds when we can, because we don't want the quail to dig them all up and eat them. Even though that just happens sometimes, there's some ways we can't avoid that. By starting some things in the greenhouse, we're giving them a head start. We're also taking really good care of them when they're young and tender so that they can grow up to be nice and strong and beefy. And then, of course, we're protecting them from various pests. Now, today, we're going to actually be starting a different kind of gourd. The loofahs are already starting to sprout. This is really exciting. But there are some other fancy gourds that we would love to grow here this year. So let me just grab a few packages here just to give you an idea. So gourds are sort of related to squash and pumpkins and even zucchini. They're all in that family. Many of them have hard shells, and they're very useful when you dry them out. They can serve as things to hold water, for example. Bottle gourds are a good example of that. There are some that are really small, and if you cut them in half, they become perfect little spoons. Those would be spoon gourds. There are some that are just decorative. There's a variety called crown of thorns that actually looks like it has little spikes coming out of it all around the outside of the gourd. So some that we're going to grow here today, and this isn't meant as an advertisement for the seed company that we're using, but we have things like a big apple gourd. I know the writing is backwards. That's what happens when we use the front-facing camera on the phone here. But those are big apple gourds. They're kind of shaped like apples. They're about that size. We have a kind of gourd called Tennessee Dancing. You actually, when they dry out, you can spin them, and they flip upside down and spin on their neck right there. They're a pretty cool toy to have. We have big gourds as well, like the bushel basket gourd. Bushel is a pretty big measurement, so those are going to grow to be pretty big round gourds. And then last but not least, we have the famous swan, speckled swan gourd. These look a little bit like a swan with the way the The top is shaped, and they have this really neat speckling on them. Now, there's lots of other kinds of gourds that we could grow. Bird houses. I mentioned crown of thorns before. There's one called nest egg. Again, these are backwards, so that really doesn't help you now, does it? But we have lots and lots of different gourd varieties. So I'm going to move us over to where our little planting station is, right over here. And make sure that we get the angle right so that we can see everything we need to see. Okay. Now, when we are doing our planting, we want to put these into soil, and we tend to use a mix, a starter mix. This is nice and airy, fluffy dirt that can hold lots of air, which is really important, and it can also hold lots of moisture. What this doesn't have a lot in it is food for the growing plant. Now, that's okay in the short term because the seed is going to have all the food that it needs to get going. But once these get a little bit established, we're going to need to start putting some kind of liquid in with their water so that they can get fed until we can plant these out. Now, different kinds of plants are going to be in containers of different sizes. These gourds need a lot of leg room when we're getting them started in the greenhouse. And so we're putting them in these fairly big pots. There are actually 18 on this particular tray that I can fit in. And some of the seeds are kind of old, so I'm going to be putting 2 seeds in each pot and then removing one of the plants if both grow so that I have 18 different plants at the end. Now, there are other kinds of containers that we could have used if we wanted to grow something different. So these, for example, are much, much smaller. There's 6 right here, about 4 of them in the space of one of these. We have others that are, other shapes and sizes as well. And sometimes we will get whole trays that are just full of individual holes for individual size things. Now, this would be great for growing peppers or tomatoes because they're not going to grow too big for these little spots before they're ready to go out in the garden after the sunshine heats up the soil enough outside. But what we're doing today are the gourds. Now, let me just grab some of my seed packets here. So let's start off with, how about the bushel basket gourd right here? Now, we're going to open up these seed packets, and inside we have our seeds. Our seeds are all going to look kind of similar. There they are right there, if you can see them. These look almost identical, actually, to the Zucca seeds. Some of you might remember from a few episodes ago, we looked at our giant gourds, the Zuccas. They're the biggest kind of bottle gourd, and we grow those here. Those have to get started really, really early. Now, these are our seeds that we're going to use. I'm going to put some of them back in the thing. We don't need them all. So, to plant these, roughly, now it depends on the exact variety, but you want to read your seed packet. But in general, you want to plant these seeds about as far under the ground as they are big. So, little seeds stay really close to the soil, really close to the surface. Big seeds get planted a little bit deeper. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them right in to my dirt. And I can just, because I haven't, this is still nice and fluffy, I haven't watered it yet, I can actually push that in fairly deep with my 2 fingers and just cover it up. And I can do the same here, and I can do the same here, and I can do the same here, and here, and here. And now I've planted 6 bushel basket gourd seeds. Now I'm going to put that, and just so that I can remember what I planted where, I'm going to put that right on top so that I can look at that in a minute. Next, let's plant some of the speckled swan gourds. Now, I've got a bunch of those too. There we are. They look very, very similar. If you started mixing the seeds, it would be really hard to tell them apart. So we're going to plant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so now we have 6 speckled swan gourds. So we have 6 bushel basket, 6 speckled swan. Now for those of you that are good at math, there's 18 spots altogether. I've already planted 6 and 6 more. So how many spots do I have left? I have 6. Okay, so for that one, we are going to do the big apple gourds. Those ones right there. So let's do this. We're going to open these up. Nice. It's always fun opening new seed packets and looking at the seeds inside. And again, they look fairly similar. They're all a little different, but they all, are a little bit similar. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've put those ones in now. That's perfect. Okay. Now, I am going to now just give these a little more dirt because I've actually pushed down the soil a little bit in doing what we're doing. So we're going to take these off. I'm just going to set them aside. And I've got a nice bucket full of our starter mix here. I'm just going to put it on top, spread it out. The seeds are far enough down that this isn't going to move the seeds around. And there we go. Okay. Now, all that these seeds need to start growing is just some water. That water is going to make the seed realize it needs to wake up and it needs to start growing. So, just like inside, I find a squeeze bottle works really well, especially at the beginning. So I'm just going to put some water in this one, and keep doing this for all of them. Now, nice warm water, as somebody sent me a message a few days ago, nice warm water soaks into this soil faster than cold water. And because this mix is still pretty dry, it's going to take a few waterings before it gets all the way through. Now these little containers, these little individual pots, are sitting in a basket that also has holes in it. And so I'm just going to fill some more water into my squeeze bottle here. Perfect. So it has holes in the bottom. So even if I put too much water in now, that is not a big deal because the water is going to flow right through. Meanwhile, the soil is going to soak up as much of that water as it can. It's going to get that seed wet and going to keep that seed wet. And it's going to give it a chance to start to grow. Now every day or so right now, especially since this greenhouse is starting to get really warm during the day, we have to leave the door open now, and we've got a vent in the ceiling up there. We got to open those during the day so that things don't get overheated. We don't want to cook our plants by accident. But those hot days also mean we need to water more often. So let me just finish this off. Give it just a little bit more water. We should be pretty good. Now the one thing I'll still have to do is put little markers in so that I can keep track of what's where so that my plants don't get mixed up. Now, I remember I've got Big Apple in the back 6 here. I've got Speckled Swan Gourd in the middle 6 here. And I've got Bushel Basket Gourds in the front 6 here. So these are all now nice and watered. It took 3 or 4 squeeze bottles to get us all the way there. But they should be good and happy now. So let's take the camera back up, put it back up over here, and it's much better perch where, honestly, I'm easier to see. I know that it's really, really bright today. That's the thing about being here in the greenhouse. The sun is right behind me. It's not ideal. But yeah, that's what we've got to do when it comes to growing different kinds of flowers that take a long season, well, there's a whole bunch of things. Snapdragons are one thing that we've already started. Hollyhocks are another one. That's a whole interesting story I'll tell you some other time about how we got those seeds from a whole other heritage site. They found them and they were very old. But yeah, that's the work we're doing this morning. So I'm going to now get out of here, get down to the other building where I can put this onto Facebook for you all so that I'm not running too late. Thanks again for joining our virtual field trip today. Again, we're doing these every single day on weekdays, Monday to Friday. They're all happening here on Facebook, and then afterwards we're uploading them to YouTube if you want to watch them later. We would really appreciate if you could spread the word, tell people about what we're doing, and if you are so inclined, it'd be really appreciated if you could help us pay some of our bills right now. Obviously, with what's going on, it's not easy for us to make money. Normally, we'd be opening the restaurant, we'd have campground, people in our campground, we'd have people touring the site. None of that is happening. I'm here by myself, but there's still bills to pay. So if you can help us out, the best way to do that would be to visit our website, click on the support link, and look for the place to buy our season's passes. If we're not able to open very much this year, your season's pass will still be good for next season. But that's a quick way to help us out with a little bit of cash that does so much to help us run this place and take care of the important history and heritage that's here. Anyways, my name again is Chris. I'm the guy in charge, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back in the kitchen doing some cooking together. So thanks so much, and we'll see you then.